Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of UK Estate and Letting Agency, and welcome to the July edition of the ICG webinar, where we bring together the who's who of PropTech, along with some particularly hand-picked chosen estate agents, to talk about the hot topics, the issues and the problems that you as UK Estate and Letting Agents are going through. Today, we're talking about your staff. At the end of the day, on the 19th of July, a lot of them, we had to bring them back. And talking to agents, especially for the last 12 months, agents have been running at 150% capacity. So you've got the issues of burnt out staff coming back with mental health issues involved with that. So today we're going to talk about staff burnout, we're going to talk about mental health being, and we're going to talk about how we can use technology to help our staffs work better to alleviate the loads. But first, what we're going to go to first is we're going to go to Zoe Bywater, who is a leading estate agent for letting agent and estate agent from Bedford. Thank you for joining me today, Zoe. Zoe, how has the last 16 months been for you as a letting agent?
I think initially in March, I don't want to sort of relive the last 16 months. It was a bit of a shock to the system, but realistically, we had 2 months at home and then we were back in the office. Obviously, I've adapted my processes and procedures in line with all the government guidance that we've had, but we've pretty much kept on trucking, as you say, since last year. I have had a couple of personnel changes, so I'll probably be able to comment on how they've integrated into the team, but realistically, we've just carried on as normal, or as normal as you can be.
Okay, let's go to Matt Baldock, who is an estate and letting agent from Chelmsford, an owner as well as Zoe. Matt, thanks for joining us today. What's been the salient points with regard to your staff in the last 16 months? And let's start off with you coming back after the first lockdown and when it all went crazy.
I think it was, to be honest, my team were really keen to kind of come back. I'm going to chase you on everything on this. We don't have staff, we have a team. But I was lucky with my guys. They were actually all keen to come back. I don't think anybody really enjoyed working from home. We've got a nice unity here. So really the point was to try and make everybody aware there was still an issue out there. So we had to make sure that the public knew what we were doing. So because we have a dual responsibility, right? I've got to keep the team safe and I've got to keep the public safe. But also you've got to keep the team's family safe as well. And so I just sat down with everybody, because some of us have got kids, some of us haven't. And we just kind of went around the table and explained everyone's greater family and said, listen, even if you think you're okay, I've got a son, so-and-so lives with a grand, and that kind of thing. Just explaining the implications that could happen without keeping safe. But on the whole, I was very lucky.
Okay, so again, put your hand up, Zoe or Matt, on this one. Is that whilst you did come back, were you working split shifts and people working from home, or were you everyone back in the office? This spring. Let's go to Zoe.
Initially, we had split shifts, so we're only a small team of 5, so there was not a big team. But I'm assuming you can upscale this sort of model if you like. So we were 2 at home, 2 in the office. I mean, I'm very fortunate. We've got a very long, narrow office, so we're socially distanced. So, but what we did do is, obviously, I carry out regular risk assessments, and I sat down with the team either over Zoom or in person and explained what we were going to do and how, and actually asked them how they felt about it. I would never in a million years have forced anyone back into the office if they didn't feel comfortable. Like I said, I've had 2 new members of staff start during the pandemic, and obviously they were a little bit more anxious because we got used to our little work bubble, if you like. And again, sat them down and explained everything. I think you, as a team, you've got to come on this journey together. There's no way trying to enforce something if it's not comfortable. Like, for example, I've got a team member whose husband was shielding. So for her, I part-time furloughed her for a spell, just so she had a little bit more time, so he wasn't going nuts at home. So you just got to adapt accordingly. And obviously, a lot of things are transferable. You can work from home if you need to. And we've got a happy little team that seem quite content now with the status quo.
Matt, do you think that, and let's be honest, COVID has been a lot of awful things have taken place, but do you think that it's brought the team closer together, your estate agency team?
Yeah, 100%. And I do think that is something you have to look at with the home working. So I think we're in a new world now with people want flexible working, people want to work from home, and that's great. What we did, we left property management at home and brought kind of the negs and the upfront staff people into the office that needed to do appointments. But then I started to notice a little bit of a disjoint, and your groups almost made bubbles. And I'm a big fan of our whole, nobody says that's not my job, that's not my, we all work together. And what I found was all of a sudden I had this bubble here and this bubble here. So we kind of, I gave everybody the choice, because as Zoe says, you can't force people to do things they don't want to do. But I said, I would like you to come back if you can. We were fortunate, we moved into a huge building we intended to sublet in the middle of all this. So we had plenty of space to spread out. And I found that once everybody came back, they got on a bit. And it was a little bit like, we're all in this together. Let's be honest, this is my generation's war. This is the kind of, and we get to all be together, pull together, and this will be something that they remember for years.
Let's go to Ian White. Now, Ian White really is, he is a consultant for some of the biggest names in the estate agency industry. Ian, I'd like to ask your opinion on this, and also probably bring in what some of your clients, because some of your clients are big 5-10 branch networks. What have they learned throughout this, both the lockdown and the staffing issues and the togetherness of the team? Talk to us.
I think certainly, just to back up what Matt said, that the Dunkirk spirit did kick in, particularly with the first lockdown. I think there was a sort of, we're going to beat this come what may, which brought not just businesses together. I think actually in many ways it brought the industry together, and there was a lot more collaboration, agent to agent, and I think there was a lot more collaboration, supplier to supplier. And I really hope that that's a legacy of this. If it can be a lasting legacy, I think that I'm not saying it's a price worth paying. I'm just saying it's at least something on the upside. And I think what some of my clients and I have also learned is that it's not the beat of my mental drum where I'm struggling or where I'm succeeding or where I'm finding it easy or where I'm finding it difficult as an individual that particularly matters. It's that there are just massively different flavors of the rainbow out there among the workforce. And in the same way that it's different, you motivate one person by a certain approach, and you can actually turn off somebody using the same approach elsewhere. It's the same with mental health. I think I was probably a mental health dinosaur. If I'm totally honest, it was sort of just get on with it type of thing. But I've actually learned this is real. I myself have experienced pressures and consequences of those pressures that I didn't believe would affect me. And I know if they can affect me, they must be able to affect other people. So I think learning that everybody's different. Some people, it will have been genuinely water off a duck's back, but other people, it'll be like they've been carrying sacks of rocks to work in the morning, and possibly still are, and they need identifying and helping and looking after.
If you don't mind me asking, Ian, when did you become aware of these issues that probably you didn't realise you've been carrying in the past, but now? I think there's a lot of people watching this that are probably carrying their own sacks of rocks.
For me, my personal point where was the isolation from my parents, who are quite elderly, and the time from being able to be with them is limited. In terms of how long they're going to be left around, and not being able to celebrate their birthdays, or that they have their birthday on the same day, they're the same age, which is unusual. Talking to them through my car window was devastating. I mean, I can't tell you how much it hurt me. But I sort of realised that if I can't handle that, then there must be people absolutely crushed. I certainly wouldn't class myself as an emotional wimp, or somebody that was naive in that aspect. I'm not likely to be emotionally affected, if you like, or pressure. For me, pressure has been a constant in my career that I've enjoyed. I've used it to drive me forward. But yeah, I did. I mean, that was the first time, and I could, not to bore everybody, give you hundreds of times since where I felt a little bit lonely and in the dark room since. But colleagues, clients, family, and everybody else have stepped up when I've needed them. So I've tried to, during this period, to do exactly the same for others, and that's step up when they need you. Be there.
Boys and girls, Ian at the moment is actually in isolation after testing positive with COVID. So I think you're only a couple of days away on it. So good luck on that one. I'd now like to go to Paul Conway. Paul, what have you learnt as a good old-fashioned human being, and also being a boss? I know you run, which is PropTech firm which helps letting agents. But what let's put that aside for a second. What have you learned for yourself and your team during the COVID, so we can help the boys and girls out there in estate agency land?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always kind of had struggles throughout my life with this sort of thing. So, but it's hard to identify what those little things are, and when your team aren't telling you about it, I think I'm more acutely aware of it because of the things that have happened in my life and how I feel about those things. But even then, I find it hard to go, right, well, how did that affect me? How do I feel? It all just kind of catches up on you, and then it hits you all at once. And that's kind of like, out of all the years of all the time that's happening, I still never learn from it. I still go through that kind of journey, and that's really hard to notice in your team when they don't even notice it properly themselves. And I think that's interesting now. I can notice it in my team quicker than I can notice it in myself. For myself, as Ian says, you just kind of like just keep on going, and then one time it just kind of hits you that it's caught up with you. But with your team, I think it can be more difficult to try and pinpoint exactly where, who needs the support, what's stressing them out, because sometimes things can come across, and as Zoe said, things can come across that maybe a team member is like, well, I don't want to come into the office, but we need to understand what that fear is, and understand exactly why that is. Is it a family member? Is it because they're a bit unsure? Maybe they just need some extra support. Maybe they need to show that other team members are in there as well. So yeah, that's kind of like, that's probably.
Do you think that it's actually made you a better boss by being able to pick up on these issues?
Maybe that's one for the team. For me myself, I think for go on the personal point, I definitely think that because of the journey that I've been through, and like the roller coaster of how much pressure business puts on you as well as your own personal things, like that definitely stands you in good stead for being a better boss and understanding people. And we've got a few people that have started just now through the government's Kickstarter scheme. So yeah, you can see that obviously they're a lot younger, so you can kind of see those struggles within them. And it's really rewarding to kind of chat to them about like things and watch them grow and all the rest of the stuff. So that was a really positive thing I would say that's came out of all of this, is the government came up with that Kickstarter scheme. It's good for young businesses, it's good for young people. I had a call with a guy the other day who was like literally so downtrodden over the last year that he's never been given an opportunity to get in a company, get some experience and stuff like that. And we've put an offer out to him, so like you can really, it was really if you've never met this guy before in your life, in a couple of minutes you can see that he's just beaten up from taking interviews and not getting positions, and COVID's killed up, really put him down emotionally over the last year as well. So hopefully he accepts, and the team are really happy and nice. So hopefully, and as Matt had said, it's like if you put them all together and you create a good atmosphere, then they'll support each other.
Good stuff. I'll tell you what, we'll touch on Kickstarter in a second. Matt, what have you got to add to the topic just before we go on to Kickstarter?
Yeah, just to pick up on Ian's points. I think the saying I learned through all this was we might all be in the same storm, but in different boats. So it was just a case of working out how it's affecting different people. But going on to Paul's point, really getting the team to kind of talk to you. My view is as a leader, you've got to show vulnerability yourself. Listen, the team are looking at you to steer them in the right direction. But if they understand that you can struggle and you can suffer, then they're more open to coming to you and feeling everyone's, because they're not thinking you're just a drink water, move forward kind of guy. And we just really, communication and conversation. I say those two words every single day. I only know things, I only can fix problems I know about. And I think that the big thing that's come out of all of this is empathy. I think, I've shown empathy towards the team, shown them that even if they're angry, understanding why they're angry. And it's had a huge knock-on effect, because we get clients and customers that are angry. But now I've got my team coming to me and going, I've spoken to them for a bit. They've actually got this issue going on in their life. They've got a personal issue going on, and that's why they've been angry with me. So we've sorted it all out. And I just think if there's one thing we can take away from all of this, is empathy. So as much of it as you can, and I think you always go forward in life.
We'll go to Brad in a second, but very interestingly, both Matt and Zoe are very, very good at putting videos out online talking about their journey as agents and talking about their staff or colleagues or team members. And if you don't mind me saying, both of your videos are, you do show vulnerability, but by showing vulnerability, not only to your team, but to the world, you do actually end up attracting people because you're showing the emotional skills which are so important. And it's really hard, isn't it? Because not only have you got to keep it together for your own household, you've got to keep it together for your team, and you've got to, and you've got your family, we've all got elderly parents. You're spinning plates. It's really hard work. Then you have to look after yourself, because if you don't keep it together, you can't keep it together for everyone else. Let's go to Bradley. Bradley from SMS. What have you got to say on the topic?
Well, just pick up on what you've just said, Chris, is that you really need to be a friend as well as a boss. And, as Paul was saying, having to have that empathy and that connectivity with your staff, because various people do have various pressures. The children at home and the homeschooling and the variability of that, kids have good and bad days, puts a lot of very changeable pressure. So one of the things we learned was flexibility and being able to try and move people around in different roles at short notice. And in many ways, it's sort of a bit of career progression as well for staff, because they are less in the box that they were in previously, and having to sort of cover more ground and sort of building that team spirit and that we're all in it together. But very definitely trying to foster that family feeling within the team, and that camaraderie and that friendship where people feel that they can actually communicate with each other and say, look, I'm having a particular tough time right now. Can someone take over? Very definitely is something we learned and acted on at short notice.
I mean, it's one thing that's really been important to me is I'm a founder member of the Agents Together charitable foundation, and one of the key elements of that is the mentoring scheme. And I've had a number of estate agents come to me, people who've been in the business 20 or 30 years, who've really been at the end of their tether. And what we've actually done is change their lives by actually doing two things. Number one, they end up mentoring a young agent, because then you feel like you're adding something to somebody else. And they also themselves become mentored by someone else. And I think by helping and guiding, let's be honest, all of us here are business owners ourselves. It's a lonely old game when you're running your own estate agency or your own business. And your other half, I know your other half might work in the business, but your staff members are beholden to you to pay their rent and their mortgages, and they have all these mental issues. You are taking the world's problems on your shoulders. Let's go to Neil. Neil at Payprop. Neil, what have you got to say about this?
Well, I was going to say, I really resonate with what you were saying there about the moral duty that we have with our employees. And I think it's what resonating here is it's all about that communication. It's getting in touch, but it's allowing people to feel that they can be vulnerable. What we often found when people went away is they are their worst critics. They held themselves as a boss far more accountable than I ever would, to their time, to their productivity, to their need to be made to be visible. And I think as employees, the more we can make them feel comfortable, as you say, showing our vulnerability, allowing them to be vulnerable and see that that is not a negative, the more we allow people to have and look after them. And then we show, because it's not just a moral duty to them as an employee. They come on board. They become, we've mentioned the word family. They become part of our unit. They become part of our team. So as employers, we should have a duty to look after their well-being and not allow them just by their circumstances or the place that they work. We went distributed. We started in 2019, and we announced it to our company at the beginning of March. And the thing that we've had to get as a message is distributed is not what we've experienced for the last 16 months. Distributed still involves you meeting, still involves you connecting, still involves you looking after each other. But that has become so much harder. And I love what Matt said, it's about that communicate. He can only know what it is, but not everybody. There's almost that hidden health. The person who can show you that vulnerability and warm, we help them, but it's almost the stoic. Just because that person isn't showing it, how do we get that person to open up? Because as Ian said, if as he was saying, if he can feel it, anybody can. But that is the message. Everybody has felt this to a degree, and we shouldn't allow people who just feel that they're, oh, I'll just get on with it, I can take the world on my shoulders. As an employer, we shouldn't allow them to go through that. We've got a duty to make sure they feel as cared and an ability to be vulnerable as anybody.
If you don't mind me asking, Neil, when was your lowest point as a boss in the last 16 months?
Do you know what? My lowest point was probably at the start of our second lockdown, because everybody had got euphoric. The property industry had been shown the confidence and been the first to open. Our agents were really showing and contacting us and using us for support. And we'd started to tell everybody we're coming out the other side. And I think that second lockdown was harder to go through, even though it was a shorter in that run up to Christmas. I think emotionally, people wondering whether they were going to get the time with family. Well, that uncertainty level of that second lockdown really threw people. And as a boss, it left me, what do I now do? I tried a lot of my strategies at the first, and I believed that was good. And then I was hit with this second one. What do I have in my arsenal now? Where do I go? How do I make sure that communication goes up a level when I felt I'd released everything the first time? And it still works. You just had to follow the same. But that same uncertainty hit me just like it hit my employees. And I think that was the hardest thing to go through, because there was almost, when will this end? Will it come out? The message started to be changing. We don't see economic turnaround until the end of 2022. The message really started to change. And I think that was the most difficult point for me as an employee.
Let's go to, thank you very much, Neil. Let's go to Ian White.
I just want to emphasise, if you were listening to this as an estate agent and you're looking to build your path out of it, you know, what I'm hearing from the people here is that, and I believe this and have seen it, is that, well, first of all, second lockdown, by far the toughest. The weather was not so good. We'd done all the hard work. The excitement, if that's the word you want to use, of solving all the problems that were chucked at us had gone. It really was a dark moment. But you know, if you really want to move forward as an employer, and you want to look after the spiritual, mental well-being of your workforce, you want to attract good people to come and join you, you want to retain the people that you've got. I've heard two really important words: empathy and flexibility. And I don't think that those are natural bed partners for the traditional estate agency model or leadership style, if we're really honest. So I think that the whole responsibility for, if there's positives to be had out of this hyenas thing that's happened to us all, can our industry, can our leaders learn empathy, flexibility, and understand that the workforce and the way they operate might have to be different moving forward? Not might have to be, it's up to you how it is. But if you really want to attract the best, keep the best, retain the best, and get the best delivery from them, the best outcomes to your customers, they're probably best served being in an empathetic, flexible environment, along with other things, of course, The only other thing I did want to say is my personal experience from those that have really, really fallen into a deep hole. They were the least obvious. They were the most gregarious. They were the people that were hiding it by outwardly trying to hide their pain through being the life and soul of the party or the meeting or whatever else. The ones that I've really seen suffer properly. We've all had little moments of awkwardness, tears, or whatever you want to call it. We've all had that vulnerability, but the people that have really needed proper medical attention and have really been knocked for six for whatever reason, in every time that I've seen this, both in my football world and in business world, have always been the ones that you would least expect from their outward behaviour.
Interesting. Let's go to Zoe. What have you got to say?
I just wanted to really sort of add to what Ian was saying. We all joke about being stuck in the 1990s. And, you know, unfortunately, with a lot of estate agency businesses, we're all target driven and results driven. And I think what we need to do within this, this environment now of empathy and understanding is we've still all got a bottom line we've got to meet. We've all got to be in the black rather than the red. But I think we have to start approaching things differently rather than sitting down and saying to somebody, why have you not hit your target this month? We've got to take a different view and look at it from a different angle. And I think that, again, will help people's mental well-being. And I've found changing my tack in that respect, I'm getting much better results, and people are more enthusiastic and motivated now, rather than asking, why have you failed?
Okay,
I think Matt wants to add to that.
Let's go to Bradley, then we'll go to Matt.
Just picking up on what Ian said, we did an interesting experiment with a very large public body where employees were asked about their state of mental health on one-to-one, and then also indirectly through a text messaging questionnaire. And what we found is that when people were not one-to-one, there was about a 15% reporting of people having mental health, where it was about between 2 to 3% previously one-to-one. And what that highlighted is that exactly what Ian was saying, is that people are not willing to speak up, where you know it's too personal, and it's how you approach them, and that like we've been saying, that empathetic approach where people don't feel threatened and they feel that they can just express without criticism and without being judged. So the approach to dealing with the staff, the approach to dealing with people who may be vulnerable is really, really important, because we all have, you know, a sense of pride and a sense of well-being. None of us likes to feel we're letting the team down, or, you know, we somehow failing or falling short. So it's really crucial to approach it in the right way, where someone can just be honest and open.
Absolutely bang on. I mean, how can we expect our staff members to be open to us if we're not prepared to be open to them? And it comes back to that vulnerability thing that we're talking about. Again, talking of vulnerability, a person who does put his heart on his sleeve. Matt Baldock, what have you got to say on this one, Matt?
Just a couple of bits, but with regards to Zoe, which she was saying about the targets and the figures, it's entirely correct. I think, and I'm plagiarising Simon Sinek a bit here, but it's rather than going to somebody and saying, look, you haven't hit your target, you've got 1 more month and you're out. It's going to say, you haven't hit your target. What's the matter? What's going on? What can we help you with? I think I believe the best estate agents understand that this business is about people, not houses. And we always look at that in terms of the people selling the property. But I actually think it goes a step up. And if you realise, when we say people, it's also the people that are working within your business. And I think the best leaders understand that if you put people before numbers, the numbers will follow. If you purely just chase the numbers, then you know you're going to lose people. Yeah, I just think, and it's a long game. It's a difficult one. It's not one that I found at the start. Sorry, but if you just have that clarity that if you look after these guys, they will give you everything. They will work for you. They do. And the other thing, just to go on to Bradley's point of view, is I think much as, you know, even I don't use staff, I don't use employer, I don't use employees, things like that. I am still ultimately their boss. So they won't always come and talk to me. So what I've done is I've built a team where I've told them all, we're all standing back to back because we're facing a wall coming from the outside, and you need to stand back to back, and no, you don't have to look over your shoulder and worry about that person. So I know if I disappear, my team will pick up each other and they'll almost self-lead. And I think we've got a massive problem in this industry. So at school, I don't think we need to learn about algebra. I think we need to learn about paying mortgages. In business, I don't think we need management training. I think we need leadership training. And it's a massive difference for me, and something that we need to sort out.
Good stuff. We'll go to Ian in a second, but Matt, if you don't mind me saying, you did a video a couple of months ago where you actually said we haven't hit target. That really did pick a heartstring with me. Tell the boys and girls out there in estate agency land what you said in that video and what the consequences of that was.
So it was May, so everything should have been going bananas because of the stamp duty holiday, obviously. And you know, you look on LinkedIn and you see all these people reporting big numbers. I'm a member of the Federation of Independent Agents. I'm speaking to other agents a lot, and we didn't do it. We just, you know, the guys and the girls, everyone worked, but the numbers just didn't come in. We were really short of where we needed to be for that month. So what I did was I told everyone to finish early. I bought everybody a pizza, and I thanked them all for their hard work that month, because giving people a bollock, you know, they work, they put the effort in. An agency is a bit like baking a cake. If you do the ingredients, you put it in the oven, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get the perfect cake. Sometimes it's going to be a bit flat. But I was confident that they were doing everything right. So you've got two options. You kind of rant and rave and say we haven't made enough money, or you say thank you, tomorrow's another month, let's go again. The upshot of that was they did everything and more they needed to do in June. They were kind of happier coming to work. You know, they felt comfortable. They pulled together as well, and they pulled each other in line a little bit. And we've got where we needed to be come the half year. But I have a slightly different way to some of explaining it. Rather than targets, I explain it that we're all in a journey together, and the journey is never going to end, right? We're going down the road for better agency. That's where we want to go, and the money is just petrol to keep that car going. And as long as they're putting petrol in, I'll take them on the journey. And sometimes new people get in the car. Sometimes people will get out of the car. Sometimes we're a bit short on petrol money. We'll have to get out and push. So we'll have to work extra hours. But ultimately, that car's got to keep going forwards. And when you explain it like that, we've kind of got the buy-in, and for us, it's working.
I love that analogy. And boys and girls, do follow Matt and his brother Neil on social media. They do check out some amazing content. Let's go to Ian White. And Ian, what I'd like to particularly bring in, I know you've got a point you want to make, is that you co-own Crux Careers, and the amount of staff at the moment that, you know, there's loads of jobs, but no one actually going for them. It's so important for bosses to keep a hold of their existing staff, because there's not many people out there that will fill it if they do go. So probably bring that into your answer as well. So fire away, please.
Let me answer that one first. I'm not so sure there is a lack of staff. I think there's a lack of vacancies attracting the right caliber. I think there's a disparity between what people are expecting of the quality for what they're putting out there as a job offer. But companies we're working with where they've, you know, looked at how to put themselves out there as a sort of class leading employer aren't really struggling to fill vacancies particularly. But if you want to offer the lowest possible basic salary, the lowest possible OTE, the lowest possible benefits, least holiday, you know, just expect that the caliber won't be at the top end of the range. And if you want you can't have champagne taste and beer money when it comes to recruitment, unless you have absolutely brilliant leaders. And I know our audience is estate agents and I'll offend them, but we are very weak in brilliant leadership in estate agency. Leadership is, there's lots of money spent with other companies that I'm involved in that, you know, Christopher, where we do training, but very rarely will the leaders get themselves trained. Very rarely will they go and get their own mindsets looked at and fixed, or positively empowered by other people. Those that do always thrive, but if you 9 times out of 10, if you show me an underperforming lister or an underperforming negotiator, I'll show you a bad leader that's above them. I've seen people move from one leader to another, or one supposed leader to a proper leader, and thrive and deliver excellent results. The issue is very rarely the person. It's the leader doesn't understand the key he's got to find to unlock the potential. Most people go to work to do a good job. They go to work to try and achieve. Humans want to please other people. It's a pre-wired thing. You know, I appreciate there's a section of society that want to go to work, do as little as possible, get away with it, don't care if they've got 10 jobs in 10 years. That's fine. Your recruitment process should wheedle those out and stop you taking them in the first place. But when you've got your golden nugget, if your golden nugget's not performing, you should be pointing a finger at yourself, not at the individual. Find a key to unlock their potential. You recruited them. So for me, if we really want to move forward with because I still think a business needs to be accountable. I don't think we have to. I still think we can look after people's mental health, and I still think we can look at and create environments that are fun to be in. But ultimately, we still need to list, we still need to charge a fee, we still need to sell, we still need to get exchanges, we still need to do all the things that pay the bills. Now, accountability within an environment where if one person fails, the whole team accept responsibility and find a solution, that's a very empowering workforce to be in, almost unstoppable. When you create that, and I can name businesses on air, I'm not going to, but that have created that, their turnovers go through the roof, their staff retention goes through the roof. The salaries of some of their people are now, they could have been 4 or 5 years ago, they might have been earning 30,000, now they're earning 150,000, employed or self-employed, doesn't matter, in both models. It's not the model or anything else, it's the culture and the journey they've been on, that if one person fails, they all fail. If one person succeeds, they all succeed. If you get that work culture, people will be able to ride the storms of mental pressures because the environment is doing it with them. They're not alone, they're together. It's very rare to find, and when you find it, it's massively exciting to be in it. And when you are in it, you just sit and watch and learn. It's a great thing to observe. And there are some people on here that have businesses that would be that I would fit into that category only based on actually their growth charts, because I've not necessarily been in them, but certainly one of them I'm not going to say out loud, but their growth chart, I've tracked it. You know, it's phenomenal, the amount of customers, the percentage of the UK estate agents that use their business. They've got to be doing something right. They've got to be doing something right. You know, so for all you leaders out there, if you've got poor performers, please, before you blame them, just have a look at what you're doing. Check your own skill sets, your own mantra, your own delivery of how to. It shouldn't be why have you not hit your targets. It should be how can I help you get there.
Do you genuinely believe that basically every boss should get not training but development, pay for a mentor? We're not, you know, just you know, because we said at the start it's a learning thing.
No, I don't, because they have to be coachable. I believe that every boss that is coachable should. If you know you're not coachable, don't waste your money. If you know you're not coachable, don't waste your money. If you're coachable, find the right mentor, find the right coach, find the right trainer or whatever it is, then that's fine if you've got an open mindset. But if you're doing it because that's the stream that you're in and that's what other people are doing and you want an on-the-arm mentor, don't bother. And certainly don't bother ringing me, because I wouldn't want to work with you, frankly, because I would turn you away. You have to be coachable. If you're coachable and you want to do things and you want to change the world, go and change it.
Okay, let's go to, thank you, Ian. Let's go to Zoe, and then we'll go to Steve.
I just want to, again, back up what Ian just said. I don't know if you recall, I said I'm a team of 5. There's 5 of us in the office, and I went through 26 staff in 18 months. I then went on a 2-day boot camp with a particular industry leader, and something snapped inside and I changed. I've now got staff retention and a highly motivated team. One, sadly, who's leaving me now, but is going on to bigger and better things. And I partly feel that my support with him has led him to do that. And I just want to say, 26 staff in 18 months, that's crazy for a small team like ours. But it took a 2-day boot camp to sort me out. And I think that's what we need to do, unless you feel that you're perfect at that. But again, the Agents Together mentoring is a perfect opportunity that isn't going to cost you anything apart from time. And I'm sure there's people out there that can help. There's some absolutely phenomenal people who are part of Agents Together now. And I hear such great things. And I'm not just giving it a plug, but I do honestly believe what Ian says is true.
Zoe, if you don't mind me asking, and again, I appreciate you got to be a little bit vulnerable here, but what's the thing that clicked in your head?
I think it was just the approach. And it sometimes you can't put your finger on it, but you're just hearing it from somebody else who maybe just words it in a different way. And you go, yeah, I get that now. And it was just coming at it from a different angle rather than you haven't hit your targets. And I can say bollocks. It's more about, let's look at how we get you there and giving that support. And it doesn't mean you're being mamby-pamby and you're not going to accept poor performance. But what it means is you just view it in a different way.
Okay, thank you very much, Sophie, for your honesty. Let's go to Steve Brad, who's part of Inventory Base. Steve, what have you got to add to this?
Well, you've certainly done a lot of discovery in yourself over the last 18 months with your employees. And I think one of the things we discovered early on, this might have been because my close colleague experienced going through cancer. And so we kind of developed a mindset of keeping busy, no matter what, we just keep busy. And so if you've got things to do and you're busy, if you ever remember getting home from the work day and you're like, it's been a really good day, and you don't really remember why, it's just that you've just been busy the entire time and sitting there idle for an hour or 2 hours or something like that, you'll kind of say, yeah, it was a bit of a boring day. So it's that busyness and that kind of that activity, that flow, I think, that really can accelerate a company. And so my job really in this business, we're a tech company, right? It doesn't mean estate agents can't learn from us. Like, I think the automobile industry learned from tech companies and built things at scale much faster. Why can't estate agents? And so, first things first is, before this even happened, you deal with things day to day anyway. You deal with, suddenly we had to leave an office because the people we were subletting from wanted to let go of the office, and suddenly that disrupts your business. You have to deal with personal health problems like cancer and various things like that. And then you introduce COVID on top of that, obviously you've got a lot more issues. So one of the things I learned early on is just control the things you can control and put processes and systems in place to make sure that really make myself as irrelevant as possible in the day-to-day working of the company, right? And what I mean by that is, if I'm the bottleneck, then the company is not going to move forward. If I'm managing people, the company is not going to move forward. I need to manage the things I can manage, and I use this word a lot when I come on these, is asynchronously. And so my kind of role in the company as a leader has basically come down to two things: moving the business forward, making decisions, whether it's people asking me my opinion and making those snap decisions, and moving the business forward in terms of its growth and getting involved in things that need to do that, and empowering employees. Empowering my employees is the second thing. It's the most important thing. So, we all work on Slack. We're all communicating day to day. We're all sitting in the same place from morning till the end of the workplace. And obviously we can talk to each other, we can video chat, we can do all these sorts of things. We implemented things like AXA for the private healthcare, where you can actually just phone a number and speak to people for mental health issues, for health concerns, anything like that. Because I'm a bottleneck there. I'm not going to help you with those things, but I can put a system in place to allow you to have access to that care and that level of expertise. Best person for the job, right? And then you've got things like Bright HR, which is, if I need time off, I just go and book it and I explain why there. I don't need to have an awkward personal conversation. I just book it. I'll get an email that tells me why. I'll complete it. I don't even need to have a conversation, and on the calendar they're booked out. Great. So, and then everything else, if anyone's ever heard of the Kanban, the to-do, in progress, done. If a staff member can just look at a board and see what it is they've got to do that day and pick from the top down, they'll never be sitting there idle asking, what is it I've got to do next? And so if you can empower your staff to be ready and just to fill their pipeline of what it is that they can help move the business forward, then everyone's always going to be productive. And being productive is what I see is kept people above the line really this last 18 months.
Good stuff. Thank you for that, Steve. Let's go to Bradley.
I think it's important to draw the difference between management and leadership, because we've spoken a lot about the various qualities of leadership and the things we need to do with management, but management is really making things happen, making the machinery of your organization work smoothly together, removing impediments to certain jobs being done, making sure that things are efficient. What Steve's just said, implementing things like Kanban, it's about how your business operates and the people in it. Whereas leadership is all about the people, inspiring, giving a purpose, giving a vision, building that family, building that team, making people feel that they're part of a wider vision, a strategy. There's direction, there's purpose, there's a reason they're getting up to come to work every morning. You need both. You need management and you need leadership. And I think we need to just highlight the fact that leadership on its own won't make a business operate efficiently. Management on its own doesn't actually give the business a purpose and a reason, and it's kind of like an aircraft that will stall. And with that in mind, just picking up on something that Ian said, a mentor that I had many years ago had said, you've got to work in the business and actually do the job if you're a manager and a leader. So people know, the people who are leading need to know what each of the jobs are in order to truly communicate what has to happen and to make that business operate in a great way. But then you also need to be able to work on the business, which is to step back and have a look at how the business operates, where there's blockages, where you can improve. But there's a third thing you need to do. You actually need to step away from the business completely. You need to step out of the business. You need to have a look at where's your organization sitting in the market as a whole. What's changing in the market? Have a look at the bigger picture. Have a look at the landscape ahead of you. And then you can go back to your leadership, which is the road, and your management, which is the car on the road.
Excellent, excellent. Just before we finish off, I did promise earlier on to talk about the Kickstarter scheme as a technique to probably bring some extra people in on board. Has anyone actually brought people in? Let's go to you first, Zoe.
Yeah, I did. Initially, probably for the wrong reasons, thinking free staff and all that, yay. But it's been a real journey. We've got a guy with us now. He's been with us for a couple of 3 months. Started with us, self-esteem was through the floor. He'd been made redundant during his apprenticeship during COVID, and wasn't very happy. But just in the short time he's been with us, he's come out of his shell. Never done video. He's already done video. I won't say too much, but he's already actively applying for jobs within the industry. He's IT based, had no idea about prop tech, but he does now. And his eyes have been opened because he didn't realise that he could step into that side of that world. And he's loving it. So, yeah. So the reasons weren't the right ones to start with, but the feeling now that I've obviously made a little difference to somebody's life with minimal effort, it's great. And, I'd recommend anyone doing it if you can. Because if he moves on, I'll probably take somebody else on and keep going until I can stop. And obviously it helps the business as well. It bolsters because you're not having to pay a salary per se, but
I think it's 25 hours a week.
Yeah. So he's doing 25 hours, you get 6 months. So
job at the end. Let's go to Ian White. Thank you, Zoe.
I probably didn't answer your question about retention is a crucial part of recruitment, and the answer is, of course, it is. I mean, that represents over half our turnover now, which is consulting on retention of existing people. You really should be avoiding the vacancy where it's all possible. So before you start thinking about hiring your next world-class superstar, just make sure you've got your ducks in a row, that when they come in, your process is able to deliver so they stick around. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
Let's go to Matt, then Paul.
We've got 2 people on the Kickstarter scheme, and I actually felt a bit of a moral obligation to do it. I think we've got a lot of clients, especially on the letting side, in hospitality, hairdressers, that kind of stuff, have really suffered. And I think we've just been crazy lucky. I can't work out why it's happened, but we've been so lucky. And I think there's an opportunity to get people back into work there. And I actually put a thing out on LinkedIn asking local children's businesses to do the same. But I made it very clear to the 2 that came with me that they weren't free labour. I said, it's my intention to keep you as a member of the team, or worst case, make sure you go into employment. And I made sure everybody in the building knew they weren't like second-rate citizens. They were a full member of the team. And so what we did, because we had that, and we took some more traditionally employed staff on, and I just think this is important quite quickly. So we had a big culture meeting, and the word culture has been bandied around quite a lot, but in agency, everybody's got this vision and culture for the customer, and it's always to be the best what does that mean? So when we did the vision and culture meeting, I actually started it with my vision for the team, and they all came in expecting for me to tell them what we were going to do for our clients. But actually, the first part of the meeting was my vision, what I wanted for them, what I wanted them to feel when they came to work, what I wanted them to feel when they left work. And I just think that's, it's all well and good talking about the clients. And listen, the clients are important, right? They bring the money in. I'm not saying we can't live off money, but I just think your team need to know that you put and what you want for them and how you want to help them grow, and then they'll do the rest for you.
Well, is it that Richard Branson quote, look after your staff and the staff will look after you, or something, or was that someone else?
Yeah, it's about the customer being the customer. Yeah, put the people first. The people look after your customers. But I had the Kickstart guys in on that as well, so everybody gets treated exactly the same. I think that's important.
Good stuff. And they even have pizza, do they?
Yeah, they can have pizza too.
Good
If
stuff.
they can get it after my brother, obviously.
There you go. I hope it wasn't ham and pineapple, which is the devil's pizza. Let's go to Paul Conway.
I do like a bit of a pineapple on a pizza. Is
No!
Oh dear, banning.
I've always been on one out. I'm fine with that. I think that with Kickstarters, you get out what you put in. So yeah, at the end of the day, they do need hand holding from a kind of management point of view, but they also need that extra leadership as well and understand what the vision is a lot more clearly, and they need a lot more touch base, as well as they're younger. We all know that we weren't as confident when we were younger. We all know that we weren't as sure of ourselves. And yeah, I think that telling them, again, I can't remember who said it, but telling them your own story of like where you came from when, you know, were kicked out of school at 15 and joined an apprenticeship or went in oil rigs or whatever the hell you did, got pissed for 10 years. Those sorts of stories make them understand that, yeah, you're human, you're not, you know, so yeah, as well as, yeah, so I guess it's just, the point was more about like, you have to give them more, but they will give you twice as much or more as you give them.
Excellent. Well, in a minute, boys and girls, I'm going to just go around and ask you all for the big takeaway that you've taken from this. This is a slight deviation from the normal ICG webinar, but we wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more softer, because we think, you know, it's not all about selling prop tech. It's about making sure that the staff and you are in a good place. You know, going forward, we have to look at the demands of the business and look at how people's workloads and work patterns work. We need to look at the control of what work we're doing with our staff and ourselves, and how much the individual themselves has do they have a say in what work they do. We have to support them. We have to encourage them. As Matt says, it's all about relationships. Do we have each other's backs? We have to look at the roles that we're doing in our estate and letting agencies, and whether individual negs and valuers understand his or her role within that organisation, and again, ultimately change. But whether COVID was going to come or not, change is always there. I look forward to seeing you all at the next ICG, which is always the last Tuesday of the month, where we'll probably come back to other topics, talking about business generation and how tech can help your business. But we just wanted, it was important, we felt at the ICG, because for those of you who don't know what the ICG is, it's a group of about 30 to 35 prop tech people who collaborate with each other to make their services better for agents. So you guys in estate agency and letting agency land can actually go out there and do what you love, which is dealing with people and selling and letting houses. So finally, we're going to go around the room, and don't worry if there's any repeats, because that obviously shows that that's a good thing. We're going to start with Bradley first. Bradley, what's the one thing that you have learnt, or was the most important thing that you want to get across to the people out there? Just, you know, what's important from what today, what we've said?
Empathetic communication, Chris. You've got to be flexible. You've got to see the person and understand that they have a life, they have a family, they have a reality, and you need to have that connection. You have to have that emotional connection with them.
Okay, Neil.
I'd probably say a common theme across all of this, and I'm going to borrow a quote that's not mine, it's Zig Ziglar's, is that when you employees and employers both agree that they're on the same side, then everybody prospers. And prosper doesn't always mean bottom line. As Matt said, prosper is about what we do, how we work, how we interact, and that we then start to enjoy what it is that we're doing.
Bang on. Steve Rad.
I'd say pay attention to what types of work that your company has. Remember that there's planned work, there's unplanned urgent work, but remember that little bit of internal work. How are we going to work on our business to make that thing that takes 8 hours in the future take 4 hours or 2 hours? How are we going to make that thing more streamlined to be in a more effective business? Don't ignore the type of work in your company that will empower your employees, that will drive your business forward, that will streamline operations, and that will really move the needle for you, because that's important work that sometimes goes overlooked.
Hang on. Matt Baldock.
I would say the ROI of helping people is always positive. And in a world and in an industry where we're taught to chase money, chase cars, chase commissions, the day you work out that happiness is the ultimate currency, your life changes.
Ian White.
Firstly, the ROI of helping people, that's just a genius statement. Just a genius little line there. Thanks, Matt, for that. I think my biggest message would be, don't let this new empathetic, flexible approach to working, rotas, bubbles, come away as COVID recedes. Keep the lessons we've learned going, and improve the work environment. Don't just go back to an unempathetic, unflexible, monotone working mythology just because we can, when this will all be a distant memory in a few years' time. It'll be a blip in time.
Paul Conway.
I think probably going back to yourself in this. So I think you guys mentioned it slightly earlier on, but if you look after yourself first, then you've got the ability and the mental health to look after your team. And if your team are looked after, they'll look after your customers. And if your customers are looked after, then your investors or your bottom line will be looked after.
Zoe, thank you.
I think 3 things came out of this for me. It all sort of stems back to a risk assessment, which sounds a little bit too health and safety, but bear with me. 3 things. Community. I have never been so close to my local community, and I want to keep that. I looked at protecting my staff from the risks, and that meant I changed my processes. And as a result of that, I'm hoping, as Ian said, we will stay using the processes we've got in place. Like, for example, we hardly ever now visit properties to do a property visit. We use the wonderful inventory base to do that. And I hope that those 3 things will stay with me: keeping the staff safe, community, and keeping the processes in such a way that now I am not wasting time on stuff anymore. And any deal is a real deal now, which is what you want ultimately.
Bang on. My ultimate takeout is that being nice, being empathetic to your team, those sort of people don't finish last. It's bad people posing as nice agents that finish last. Kindness isn't a weakness. But some people think that the big ugly 1980s shout at your kind of bosses, and you don't mind me saying, Zoe, I think you've learnt your lesson on that one, and now you're a different person. I think when your kindness is loaded with an ask at the back, people can smell that. But if you're just nice, as Matt says, being nice is ROI positive. Funny things start to happen when you give without expectation. A huge amount, even more, comes back to you. So thank you very much for your time today, boys and girls out there in estate agency land. We look forward to seeing you next time on the last Tuesday of August, where we'll be talking about other interesting things that could be of interest to you as estate or letting agents. It will be announced in social media a couple of weeks before, but also because you've been watching this, if you register on the ICG, you get an email every single month with what the next ICG webinar is. Can I just say thank you, everyone? Firstly, I want to say thank you to Diana, who's in the background, pulling the levers and sorting it all out. If it wasn't for Diane, none of this would happen. So a big, huge thank you. I'd also like to say a big, massive thank you to 2 agents here, which is Zoe and Matt. Thank you for taking time out of your day for that. Big thank you to Paul and Steve and Neil and Brad and the legend himself, Ian White, for being on this. I know Ian and Neil, you are Neil, you're just in isolation at the moment, and Ian, you're about to come out, aren't you? Is that right? So good luck on that. I hope you haven't gone too crazy. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen, in Estate Agency Land, and we'll see you next month. Thank you. Wave goodbye, everyone.